I consider myself lucky to have been part of these Hall of Fame ceremonies since the very first one back in 1998. I feel even more fortunate to have been asked to present several Hall of Fame members for their induction, including the man I'm here to talk about today, the great Don Collins. But this one is a little bit different for me because I was never lucky enough to see Don Collins do what it was that made him such a legend. Whenever I've stood here in the past, it was to pay tribute to somebody I'd been lucky enough to watch in person. Sadly for me, I came along a little too late to see Mr. Collins in his role as Grand Master of the Waterford Speed Bowl. I never got to know him in eyewitness form as Don Collins, the race driver. In a strange way, however, this only added to my appreciation of him. Through my love of history and through the words of others, I came to know him as Don Collins, the icon, Don Collins, the Speed Bowl king, Don Collins, who was so damn good that to this day, whenever you talk to a Waterford old-timer about any of that track's big winners, from Charlie Webster to Bob Potter, who's here today, sooner or later you're guaranteed to hear this: yeah, but you should have seen Collins. When you stop to consider that Don Collins hasn't raced in 35 years and is rarely seen at a racing-related event, this is an extraordinary compliment to a man who is clearly an extraordinary champion. And yet Collins remains a bit of a mystery man to a lot of folks from my generation. That's mostly because once he retired from racing, Collins pretty much did a vanishing act. By the way, this was a champion who certainly went out in style. In 1970, he won the season opener at the Waterford Speed Bowl. And when the race ended, he simply told his car owner, Billy Simons, that he was hanging up his helmet. I just had the feeling that I'd had enough of it, is how he explains it today. To this day, he has never been back to the Speed Bowl. When I asked him why he had never revisited the place he was so much a part of, and that was so much a part of him, Collins, who has always been the shy, quiet type, said, quote, "I guess I was afraid somebody would pin me down and I'd have to say a few words," unquote. So just like that, he was gone, really gone. And so, in my most curious years, I thought an awful lot about Don Collins. What made him win, I wondered? What made him so good? Like I said, Don Collins, mystery man. Fortunately for me, I've always loved a good mystery, so whenever his name came up in conversation, I found myself asking folks about Don Collins. Mo Guernsey, one of New England's earliest stock car champions, raced against Collins often at the Speed Bowl. Moneybags Mo had been retired for years before I got to know him, but I spent a lot of time listening to him talk about the good old days. Whenever the subject turned to Don Collins, I was all ears. I asked Mo one day what had made that guy so tough. Old Moneybags came back with one word: smooth. Just recently, in preparation for this event, I called a couple of guys who qualify as Don Collins experts. Al Goodrow, who I consider to be as sharp a guy as there is when it comes to the Waterford Speed Bowl, and Bill Slater, who I consider to be as sharp a guy as there is when it comes to just about everything connected with modified racing. Both of them are with us here today. Goodrow, whose modifieds won 4 straight Waterford championships in the early 70s with Dick Dunn, another guy who's here today, at the wheel, was just a kid in the grandstands when he first saw Collins race in 1956. And while he first competed at Thompson in 1948 with a borrowed helmet and a 37 Ford Coupe he'd bought for $50, and while he made occasional starts at other tracks, including Norwood, Seekonk, Plainville, and Albany, Saratoga, he will forever be linked with that wonderful little shoreline oval on Route 85. In the Speed Bowl's very first year, 1951, young Don Collins, who turned 20 that July, won 7 feature races, and he never stopped winning. In 1960 alone, he captured an astonishing 23 wins there, 17 in the modifieds and 6 in the old non-Ford division. Although keeping accurate records was not a high priority with race organizers in Don's heyday, he recorded at least 100 documented victories at the Speed Bowl, including those 6 from the non-Ford class and 94 in the modifieds. Collins was crowned the modified champion at Waterford in 1955, 57, 60, 63, and 1969. To get a taste for the level of competition at the Bowl during his best years, and maybe to understand just how good this man was, listen to the roll call of Waterford champions between 1955 and 1963. 55, Don Collins. 56, Bill Slater. 57, Don Collins. 58, Red Foot. 59, Bill Slater. 1960, Don Collins. 61, Ted Stack. 62, Dick Beauregard. 63, Don Collins. Pretty good group. John Brower, whose family was involved with the history of that track from the beginning and who authored the book, A Racing History of the London Waterford Speed Bowl, wrote this, quote, "Collins was the personification of all the qualities that make a good driver. He was good in every car he drove," unquote. And what cars they were. His own coupes, the 100 and the 106, another 106, this one owned by Francis and John Burrell, and as previously mentioned, the famed Simon's 9. And when legendary car owners Bob Viteri and Vic Bombassi decided to attack the 1960 season on two fronts, taking Slater and the brand new V8 to Norwood, their choice to fill the seat of the second V8 at Waterford was an easy one, Don Collins. He won the track championship that year in the V8, and he won another for the Burrell brothers and another for Billy Simons, and two with himself listed as the car owner. So John Brower's assessment was right on the money. This man truly was good in every car he drove. I've always believed that the health of short track racing is heavily dependent on colorful drivers, on local champions, on Saturday night heroes. It is my high honor to present for induction into the New England Auto Racing Hall of Fame a man who was all of those things, a colorful driver, a local champion, and the biggest Saturday night hero there ever was for thousands and thousands of race fans, Mr. Don Collins.
Blessed today. Unfortunately, that's the way it's going to be. I'm not going to be able to. There's quite a few little things that I could come up with and talk about, and I think the more I tried, the worse I'd probably get myself into. So I'm better off to kind of cut it off as much as I can. Unless you can think of something else to help me out here, you know? Get up a little closer here. Come on.
It's like question and answer. How about when you first went to Thompson and tried to sign in?
Yeah.
First race you ever drove?
Well, that was something that would be pretty good probably to talk about, because it's going to say that I did start young. Actually, I was 17. I took a car up there, towed the car up, and didn't intend to drive it myself, but I had the thing that was supposed to be ready to race, and I went up to the gate and whatever, you know, to give him the money to get in. I think it was Steve Scambato. He was there, and he says, well, asked me my age. So I told him the truth, I was 17. And, well, I guess he just changed that quick, you know, and then I got in, and I ended up, a friend of mine had a helmet there, so I borrowed his helmet. Went out there, and I'm trying out the car, and all of a sudden, you know, somebody come out, and they stopped, because we were just practicing, told me the position that I'm going to be in. And that's how I guess I started. I got into the heat there. And basically, I believe after that, I bought the helmet from the guy, and I still have the helmet. Gave him $25 for it. That's almost as much as I paid for the car. You told him I paid $50, I guess, for the car. So anyway, I got through that little story pretty good, I guess. And there's many others that I could almost think of, but I think it's better off if I don't say too much. I guess probably I'd like to just thank Near and thank everybody here for having me here, and thank you very much.